Nearly 1 in 3 adults over 60 is living with early kidney disease right now, and the vast majority of them have no idea. No pain, no swelling, no warning. The kidneys are quiet organs. They do not complain until they are already in serious trouble, and by then the conversation in the office shifts from prevention to damage control. I am a physician with more than 15 years of practice, and I have sat across from patients who were shocked, genuinely shocked, to learn their kidneys had been struggling for years while they went about their lives feeling perfectly fine. The 10-minute appointment does not leave room to explain what is happening inside those 2 fist-sized organs while you sleep. It does not leave room to explain that something as simple as what you eat in the evening, the last thing you put into your body before bed, can change the direction your kidney health is heading. That is what we are here for today. We are going to talk about fruit, specifically the best fruit you can eat before bed if you want to protect your kidneys, slow the damage that may already be happening, and give your body the tools it needs to do its best repair work overnight. And I want you to stay with me until the very end, because the fruit I name last is the one that surprised my own patients the most, the one that looks ordinary on the shelf but does something inside the kidney's filtration system that nothing else on this list does quite the same way. Before we go any further, I want you to do something for me right now. In the comments below, tell me how old you are and whether you have ever been told you have elevated creatinine, protein in your urine, or any stage of chronic kidney disease. I read those comments. The age and the health picture of the people watching shapes exactly what I cover next, and your answer matters. Now, why does the timing matter? Why before bed? Your kidneys do not sleep when you do. While you are lying down and your body is at rest, your kidneys are running what I call the night shift. Blood pressure drops, the muscular demands on your heart fall. Blood flow through the kidney's tiny filtering units called nephrons becomes steadier, less turbulent. This is the window when the kidneys can do their most efficient work, clearing metabolic waste, balancing minerals, and repairing the delicate lining of those filters. But here is the problem. That same night shift is when inflammation can run unchecked. When oxidative stress, the biological equivalent of rust accumulating on metal, can damage the walls of those nephrons. And what most people eat in the evening, the processed snacks, the salty leftovers, the sugary desserts, sends the wrong signals right into that repair window. The right fruit sends a completely different signal. It delivers antioxidants that neutralize the rust. It delivers compounds that ease the pressure on those filters. It delivers nutrients that help the kidney maintain its delicate mineral balance without overworking the system. So let's go through them. The first fruit is watermelon. Before you move past this one, because it sounds too simple, I want to make sure you understand what you would be passing up. Watermelon is roughly 92% water, and that is not just a fun fact, that is the mechanism. The kidneys need fluid to filter efficiently. When you are mildly dehydrated going into sleep, which most older adults are without realizing it, the concentration of waste products in the blood rises. The nephrons have to work harder to clear the same load. Watermelon gives you a slow, food-based source of hydration that does not spike your blood sugar the way a glass of juice would, and does not overload your system the way drinking a large glass of water right before bed can for someone with a sensitive bladder. Beyond the water content, watermelon contains a compound called lycopene. Lycopene is a carotenoid, which means it belongs to the same family of plant pigments that give tomatoes their red color. In the kidney, lycopene has been studied for its ability to reduce oxidative stress in renal tissue, that is the rust I was describing. Research has linked higher lycopene intake to reduce markers of kidney inflammation, particularly in people who already have some degree of chronic kidney disease. And then there is citrulline. Watermelon is the richest dietary source of an amino acid called citrulline, and the body converts citrulline into arginine, which supports healthy blood vessel function. Why does that matter for the kidneys? Because kidney filtration is a pressure-dependent process. The nephrons are essentially a very sophisticated pressure washer. If the blood vessels feeding those nephrons are stiff, inflamed, or poorly regulated, the filtration suffers. Citrulline helps those vessels stay more relaxed and responsive. A practical note: 1 to 2 cups of fresh watermelon, eaten about an hour before bed, is the sweet spot. Not watermelon juice, not watermelon candy, not a watermelon flavored anything. Fresh whole watermelon. If you are watching your blood sugar, eat it with a small handful of unsalted pumpkin seeds. The fiber and protein will blunt the glycemic response significantly. The second fruit is blueberries. I have been recommending blueberries to my patients with kidney concerns for more than a decade. Not because it is fashionable, and not because someone put together a clever marketing campaign. Because the mechanism is real and the effect is measurable. Blueberries are dense with a class of compounds called anthocyanins. These are the pigments that make blueberries blue, and inside the body they function as some of the most potent anti-inflammatory agents we get from food. Inflammation is not just a cardiovascular problem or an arthritis problem. It is a kidney problem. Chronic low-grade inflammation accelerates the scarring of kidney tissue, a process called renal fibrosis, and once tissue scars, it does not filter, it just sits there. Replacing functional nephrons with scar tissue is how kidney disease progresses. Anthocyanins work by interfering with several of the inflammatory signaling pathways that drive this scarring process. They do not shut inflammation down entirely. You need some inflammation. It is part of how the body heals, but they turn down the chronic, smoldering kind that does damage without doing repair. There is also a separate effect worth mentioning. The kidneys are highly vulnerable to what is called oxidative DNA damage because they have such high metabolic activity. Blueberries have been shown in studies to reduce markers of oxidative stress in kidney cells, meaning they help protect the actual genetic material inside those filtration cells from the kind of damage that leads to dysfunction over time. Half a cup of fresh or frozen blueberries before bed. Frozen is perfectly fine. Freezing actually breaks down some of the cell walls and can make the anthocyanins more bioavailable. No added sugar, no syrup. If you want to make it feel more like a treat, add a tablespoon of plain Greek yogurt, which adds protein and probiotics without taxing the kidneys. So far, both of these fruits have worked through the same basic mechanism, reducing the oxidative stress and inflammation that damage kidney tissue while you sleep. We are 2 in. The next 3 go deeper into the specific functions the kidney handles during the night shift, and they each target a different part of the problem. Now, before we go further, I want to pause for a moment. If this is starting to add up for you, if you are recognizing things your doctor has mentioned but never had time to fully explain, I want to tell you about something we put together for exactly that situation. We have built a resource called the Complete Senior Health Vault. It covers the medications most worth questioning after 60, the food strategies that work as medicine, and the body signals your visits never had time to explain. Everything I can only scratch the surface of in a video like this, written in plain English and organized so you can apply it to your own situation, your pills, your plate, the numbers on your lab report. You will find the link in the description below, and you can also scan the code on your screen right now to take a look. It is educational material, not a substitute for your doctor, but it is the kind of background that makes your appointments far more useful. Now, let us keep going, because the next fruit is one of the most underused tools on this list. The third fruit is cranberries. Most people associate cranberries with urinary tract infections, and that connection is real, but it only scratches the surface of what cranberries do for kidney health specifically. Let me explain the deeper mechanism. The kidneys and the urinary tract are connected by more than anatomy. Bacteria that cause repeated urinary tract infections do not always stay in the bladder. In older adults, especially women, recurrent infections can travel upward into the kidney tissue itself, causing a condition called pyelonephritis, which can scar kidney tissue and accelerate decline in filtration function. Preventing that bacterial foothold matters. Cranberries contain compounds called proanthocyanidins, sometimes called PACs, and these compounds do something remarkable. They do not kill bacteria directly. Instead, they change the surface chemistry of the urinary tract lining so that bacteria cannot attach. Bacteria have to attach to surfaces to cause infection. If they cannot get a grip, they pass through and are eliminated. No attachment, no infection, no kidney damage from repeated ascending infections. But cranberries do something else that is less widely known. They are naturally high in a flavonoid called quercetin, and quercetin has been studied specifically for its effects on kidney inflammation and on something called tubular damage to the tiny tubes inside the nephron that do the actual reabsorption and concentration work. Quercetin appears to protect these tubes from oxidative stress and may reduce the fibrotic response that follows kidney injury. The practical challenge with cranberries is that most products on the market, cranberry juice, cranberry cocktail, dried cranberries, are loaded with sugar, and excess sugar is genuinely harmful to kidney health. High sugar intake drives higher levels of uric acid and drives a process called glycation, where sugar molecules attach to proteins and damage the glomeruli, the tiny filtering knots inside each nephron. What you want is either a small handful of fresh or frozen cranberries mixed into something, a smoothie, a bowl of plain yogurt, half a cup of oatmeal that you made earlier in the evening, or an unsweetened cranberry supplement that is specifically standardized for PAC content. If you go the supplement route, talk to your doctor first, particularly if you take a blood thinner like warfarin, because cranberry can interact with anticoagulant medications. The fourth fruit is red grapes. Red grapes contain resveratrol, and resveratrol has been one of the most studied compounds in longevity research over the past 2 decades. But I want to set aside the longevity angle for a moment and talk about what resveratrol does specifically inside the kidney, because that story is more important and less told. The kidneys regulate something called intraglomerular pressure. That is the pressure inside those tiny filtering knots, the glomeruli. When blood pressure is elevated, that pressure inside the glomerulus rises too. And over time, elevated intraglomerular pressure physically stretches and damages the glomerular membrane, the filter itself. This is one of the primary reasons that uncontrolled hypertension is so damaging to kidney function. The filter gets stretched and scarred, and it starts leaking things it should not, like protein. Resveratrol has been studied for its ability to reduce this intraglomerular pressure by relaxing the tiny muscles in the arterioles that feed the glomeruli. Think of it this way. If you have a garden hose with the water turned on too high and the nozzle is too tight, the hose walls are under intense pressure. Resveratrol is like slightly loosening that valve. It reduces the pressure at the level of the filter itself. Beyond that, resveratrol activates a cellular pathway that promotes autophagy in kidney cells. Autophagy is the process where cells clean out their damaged components and recycle them. I describe it to my patients as the cell's internal housekeeping service. During sleep, autophagy runs at higher rates. The right compounds eaten before bed can amplify this process in kidney tissue. One cluster of red grapes, roughly 12 to 15 grapes, is a reasonable serving before bed. Eat them whole, not as juice. The skin and the pulp together provide fiber that slows the absorption of the grape's natural sugars, and the resveratrol is concentrated in the skin. Red and purple grapes have significantly more resveratrol than green grapes, so the color matters. Quick pause here. If this information is something you would want a family member to have, a spouse, a sibling, someone managing a diagnosis of early kidney disease or high blood pressure, please send them this video. And if this is landing for you, tap the like button. It genuinely helps this reach the people who need it most. Now we come to the fifth fruit, and this is the one I promised you at the beginning. This is the one that surprised my patients. This is the one that looks completely ordinary on the shelf, that most people eat in the summer and think nothing of, but that does something inside the kidney's filtering system that no other fruit on this list does quite the same way. That fruit is cherries. Let me tell you exactly why. Cherries, specifically tart cherries, the Montmorency variety you find in stores as tart cherry juice, dried tart cherries, or tart cherry concentrate, contain a specific combination of compounds that target one of the most underappreciated threats to kidney health in older adults: elevated uric acid. Uric acid is a waste product that the kidneys are responsible for clearing from the blood. It is produced when the body breaks down purines, which are found in meat, seafood, organ meats, and certain vegetables. When uric acid levels rise too high, a condition called hyperuricemia, the kidneys face a double problem. First, the kidneys themselves have to work harder to clear the excess. Second, uric acid crystals can deposit inside the kidney tissue and inside the tiny tubules, physically damaging the structures responsible for filtration and concentration. This is not just a gout problem. Elevated uric acid is increasingly recognized as an independent risk factor for chronic kidney disease progression, independent of whether a person ever develops gout symptoms in their joints. Tart cherries have been studied specifically for their ability to lower serum uric acid levels. A study published in the Journal of Functional Foods found that consuming tart cherry juice was associated with a meaningful reduction in uric acid concentrations in the blood. The mechanism involves both increasing the renal clearance of uric acid and inhibiting an enzyme called xanthine oxidase, which is actually the same enzyme targeted by the prescription medication allopurinol, one of the main drugs used to treat gout. This does not mean tart cherry juice is a substitute for allopurinol. Never stop a medication on your own. Bring any change in your supplement or food routine to your doctor's attention. But it does mean the mechanism is real and clinically meaningful. Beyond the uric acid effect, tart cherries are exceptionally high in melatonin, one of the highest natural food sources. Melatonin is the hormone your brain uses to regulate the sleep-wake cycle, and for the kidneys, this matters in a specific way. The kidneys themselves have circadian rhythms. Their filtration rate, their hormonal activity, their ability to regulate sodium and potassium, all of these follow a daily cycle. Disrupted sleep disrupts these kidney rhythms. Tart cherry melatonin does not just help you sleep better. It may help synchronize the kidney's own biological clock, allowing the night shift repair work to happen at the right time and in the right sequence. And tart cherries contain a specific anthocyanin profile that has been studied for anti-inflammatory effects in renal tissue. The combination of uric acid reduction, melatonin support, and anti-inflammatory action makes tart cherries unique. Nothing else on this list does all three. The practical use: 1 tablespoon of unsweetened tart cherry concentrate mixed into a small amount of water, taken 30 to 45 minutes before bed. Alternatively, a half cup of unsweetened tart cherry juice, though watch the sugar content and make sure it says 100% tart cherry with no added sugar. Dried tart cherries work too, but again, only the unsweetened variety. Let me tell you about a patient I will call Margaret. Margaret was 73, living in Tucson, Arizona, and she had been managing stage 2 chronic kidney disease for about 4 years when she first came to see me. Her creatinine was creeping upward slowly. Her estimated filtration rate had dropped from the mid-60s to the high 50s over 2 years, and her uric acid levels were consistently elevated, hovering around 7.4. She did not have classic gout, no joint pain, no visible swelling, but her kidneys were clearly struggling to clear what they should have been clearing. She was exhausted, not sleeping well, and she told me she was terrified. Her mother had been on dialysis for the last 3 years of her life, and Margaret could see herself heading in the same direction. She told me that her appointments left her with more questions than answers. We did not start with a new prescription. We changed what she ate in the evening. We removed the salty crackers and the processed cheese she was having after dinner. We added a tablespoon of tart cherry concentrate before bed, a small cluster of red grapes with her evening tea, and a half cup of blueberries with plain yogurt a few nights a week. We made sure she was adequately hydrated during the day so she was not going to bed dehydrated. 12 weeks later, her uric acid had dropped from 7.4 to 5.9. Her sleep had improved noticeably. She was getting an additional hour of quality rest most nights, and when her lab work came back at her next nephrology appointment, her estimated filtration rate had stabilized. It had not dropped. For someone whose numbers had been slipping for 2 years, stabilization was not a small thing. Her nephrologist asked what had changed. She told him. Someone finally explained the why. That is what Margaret carried with her. Not just a list of foods, but the understanding of what her kidneys were doing while she slept and what those foods were doing to help them. She told me later that she felt for the first time in 4 years like she was doing something, not just watching something happen to her. That is the goal here. Not fear, not a list of things to memorize. Agency. Here is what I want you to do tonight and this week. Tonight, if you have watermelon, blueberries, red grapes, fresh or frozen cranberries, or tart cherry concentrate at home, pick one and eat a reasonable portion about an hour before bed. Just one. You do not need all 5 tonight. Start with the one that is already in your kitchen, the one that feels like the smallest lift. This week, go to the store or send someone and pick up unsweetened tart cherry concentrate. It is usually in the health food aisle or the supplement section. Read the label. You want 100% tart cherry, no added sugar, no corn syrup. That tablespoon before bed costs pennies per night, and it targets 3 separate mechanisms that drive kidney damage in older adults. Also this week, if you have not had your kidney function checked recently, meaning your creatinine, your estimated filtration rate, and a urine test for protein, ask your doctor for it. It is a simple blood draw and a urine sample, and it gives you a baseline. You cannot track progress on something you have never measured. If you are already managing kidney disease, bring this video up at your next appointment. Tell your doctor you have been reading about tart cherries and uric acid. Ask specifically whether your uric acid level has been checked, because many patients with early kidney disease have elevated uric acid that has never been flagged or discussed. And if someone in your life is dealing with kidney disease, high blood pressure, or diabetes, all of which directly threaten kidney function, share this with them today, not tomorrow, today. Because the earlier this information reaches someone, the more they can do with it. Leave me a comment below and tell me you are going to ask for a kidney function panel at your next appointment, or tell me which of these fruits you already have in your kitchen. I genuinely read these comments, and knowing where you are starting from helps me know where to take this channel next. Before you go, I want you to know that there is one more place the body sends early warnings that most people completely overlook. Not the blood, not the kidneys, somewhere that surprised every single patient I showed it to. That is the next video, and I will see you there. Stay sharp.